Greetings, film connoisseurs. Welcome to the No Flimflam Film Fan channel. Today we are discussing alchemy. We'll also be talking about edible weeds and whether I have developed the potion of
immortality.
Spoiler alert. But have I developed a tasty, healthy beverage made from things your homeowners association wants eradicated? Stay tuned to find out.
Mystics came to live in a dream of peace. Their ways were the gentle ways of natural wizards.
I don't expect many of you to appreciate the subtle science and exact art that is potion making. However, for those select few who possess the predisposition.
Like most people, I first took interest in the subject of alchemy because it was an easy way to make money and overpower my character in the game Morrowind. In real life, I started taking an interest in weeds and herbs and their potential uses in food after I moved into this house last year and saw all the colorful things growing in the uncut yard. Let's meet today's lucky weeds. Keep in mind that the definition of weed is simply a wild plant growing where you don't want it because it's competing with your cultivated plants. That could be berries, that could be flowers. Anything invading your space is a weed. I suppose since technically I'm making use of these plants and like having them around, they're not weeds anymore, but I digress. Let's take a look at the first plant here. We've got the lovely grape hyacinth. More welcome than weeds, certainly, but it has grown all over the yard, much like a weed would. And I never planted one. The flowers on the grape hyacinth are edible, and they have a texture much like, surprise, surprise, a grape. But they're very bitter, very medicinal tasting, you might say. Which brings me to an important point. Don't just go around the yard eating pretty things. Always verify the safety of what you're doing with an expert. In the Mediterranean, grape hyacinth bulbs are sometimes pickled or cooked and served as delicacies. The flowers are known to provide antioxidants and vitamin C, the essential ingredients to most modern supplements promising long life and protection from illness. So this is a great base for a potion of immortality. Here we have lemon balm, a member of the mint family. Again, you might not technically think of it as a weed, but goodness, try killing it. You can't. We ripped out so much of this from under our deck last year, and it came right back this spring. Lemon balm, as the name implies, has a very pleasant citrus aroma. It's been used since ancient times in a variety of ways for its calming effect. It was also used in the past to treat insect stings and is still used for treatment of cold sores. I think the soothing nature of this herb can help reduce the bitterness of the grape hyacinth in my potion, and its anxiety-reducing qualities can only contribute to longer life. These last two are not in the potion, but I wanted to include just to provide a couple more examples. This common dandelion is a wonderful example of how weeds can be misunderstood. Not only is it great for the local bee population, but every part of the plant offers health benefits for humans. It has a long history of use in Chinese and Native American medicine, especially pertaining to digestive health and liver and kidney problems, among others. You can use the leaves in a salad, you can pan-fry the flowers, you can even make dandelion wine if you want.
Slightly floral and citrusy.
Personally, I really enjoy drying and roasting the roots to make a tea. It's got a naturally sweet, earthy flavor that's just unique and delightful and has been a a big hit in my household. Finally, we have purple dead nettle, another member of the mint family which, despite the name, has a history of use in life-saving treatment of wounds because of its natural antibacterial and antifungal qualities. It is a hardy plant that spreads quickly in a variety of settings and is one of the first plants to flower in spring. If you happen to have any friends who practice witchcraft, you might bring them some so they can brew you a potion for happiness, healing, or hardiness in times of trouble. It's also just a very healthy thing to eat. I tossed some of these into a frying pan along with dandelion heads the other day while frying some chicken. I'll drop a recipe in the description. Time to gather up ingredients for the potion. Grab at least a handful of grape hyacinth flowers. More flowers equals more potency, but also more bitterness. Remember to only use the flowers, as the rest of the plant can be toxic. Lemon balm I find to be rather delicate as a flavoring, so you can grab as much of that as you like without concern for overpowering other elements. It's here simply as a soothing side effect. I'm also adding honeycomb and the zest of some citrus fruit. This is for flavoring, but given honey's eternal shelf life, I think it's an appropriate add-on any aspiring alchemist ought to approve. I'm only using the zest of the fruit, by the way, none of the juice. There's a rather nifty alchemical reason for this that I will show you later. Alright, it's time to get your pots and your alchemy caps ready. We're gonna brew ourselves an elixir of life, or potion of immortality as I call it. But, like a true alchemist, I cannot simply give you clear, concise instructions. No, my words must be caged in hard-to-decipher riddles. As one of the most prolific and influential writers on the subject of alchemy, Jabir ibn Hayyan, once said, "The purpose is to baffle and lead into error everyone except those whom God loves and provides for." And if you'd like God to love and provide for you, subscribe to this channel, and hey, why not pay for my special alchemy course? Only those who sign up for the alchemy course under my instruction will get the code to decipher my instructions, just like a true alchemist. Don't just take my word for it. Check out this review from a satisfied customer.
It certainly pays to go for the best.
Prim and proper is the bucket that calls itself bouquet, with its long-suffering companion and less than socially acceptable extended family. Bucket now learns Daddy is in hospital after falling off bicycle. Nude. Chasing the milk woman. I'm going to let this steep before tasting, and while we wait, I'll give a brief history of alchemy. Now, don't worry, if you skip ahead to the tasting, I won't judge you for being uncultured, unsophisticated, and generally barbaric in your viewing habits. Let's talk alchemy. If your awareness of alchemy originates in Western entertainment, you likely conjure images of wizard-like eccentrics, boiling experiments in a clandestine castle laboratory in medieval Europe. Maybe they're attempting to transmute lead into gold or brew a potion to cure disease. Maybe you think of alchemy as the kooky occult ancestor to chemistry or pharmacology. And yeah, that's all very true. But there's so much more to the story than potions class in Harry Potter. Centuries before alembics ambled their way into European alcoves, distinct fields of alchemy were developing in India and China, with a different type of focus on understanding the basic quality. Distinct fields of alchemy were developing in India and China, with studies on the characteristics of metal interwoven with religious mythology and a desire to live forever. And the version of alchemy, familiar to Western fans of fantasy film and video game, didn't start out in a medieval laboratory like this one, but rather a time and place entirely different. The oldest still existing writings we have on alchemy come to us from Zosimos of Panopolis, a Greek-speaking Gnostic Christian living in Egypt during its Hellenistic phase under the Roman Empire. Writing from the 4th century, he speaks highly of sages of the past who laid the foundations of his work. The first named sage, a woman, Mary the Jewess. Names were different back then. While Mary is given credit as the inventor of some of the first tools of alchemy, he takes the spiritual and intellectual history of the practice back much, much further, to the foundations of metallurgy and ancient temple rites in the age of the pharaohs. If we could venture back in time, cleverly disguised in period attire like this, and talk to Zosimos and ask him about the origins of the technology of metallurgy, he would have sat us down under a pear tree just like this, but Greek, and explained to us how long ago angels from on high rebelled against the one true God and were cast down to the earth, where they married human women and divulged their arcane heavenly knowledge to these women they married, including the secrets of how to take rock from caves and process it into useful metals. Mythology, religion, spirituality, it's all integral to the alchemist. For a Gnostic mystic like Zosimov, the process of transmutation, taking a base, seemingly worthless object and turning it into something incredibly valuable and useful, that's a reflection of a personal spiritual journey to a more pure state of being. And in this time period, there's not much evidence of much more than talk of spirituality. There's some guides to coloring gemstones or manufacturing artificial gold or silver, but it doesn't really go much further than that. It's not yet the proto-chemistry that it's famous for. Alchemy is largely mystical. Around the time Zosimos was alive, there was a rebellion in Alexandria, in Egypt, and one of the ways that the Roman Empire sought to crush the rebellion was to go after the alchemists and burn all their writings. Why do this? Well, alchemy is not a field for people encouraging the status quo. These are esoteric philosophers pushing the boundary of human reason and religion and technology. And they're in a region where there's already active rebellion happening. If they ever succeed in their experiments, they're going to have technology in the hands of the rebellion, the likes of which has never been seen before. So naturally, yeah, the government wanted to quash that. and it's much easier for law enforcement to burn books than it is to understand them. As for the writings that come after Zosimus, well, it's mostly focused on the past. They're not really pushing the field forward. You don't see a lot of experimentation encouraged. It's very mystical. And the practice could have well just crumbled along with the Roman Empire. But it doesn't. Newsflash, 7th century, Islam on the rise in the Middle East. By the 8th century, a major force to be reckoned with. And the religious and political leadership from the Middle East knows if they're going to survive in the new world they've created, they need all the knowledge they can get. They draw from anywhere and everywhere. Doesn't matter the culture, doesn't matter the language, doesn't matter the religion or lack thereof. They get every book they can get their hands on, and they start a massive undertaking to translate it into Arabic. The more knowledge they get, the more they start to adapt it and apply it to their lives. There is a flourishing of new systems and new development, new mathematics, new astronomy, new sciences, new architecture, new anything and everything they can draw from this ancient knowledge, including alchemy. Things get systemized. We see the beginnings of classifications of chemicals and systems. There's a flourishing of writings on the subject. Most prolific, Jabir ibn Hayyan. Massive amounts of writings on a wide array of subjects, actually. Astronomy, medicine, botany, alchemy, religion. With those writings, we begin to see not only a more systemic, scientific type approach, but also a deeper, mystical approach. Not just going for the impossible of turning one metal into another, but could we perhaps...
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Synthetic life was a dream of some Islamic alchemists during this period. Not just animal life or vegetable life, but human life.
Life in a laboratory? What a crazy idea! That we have not given up on. And no, we haven't made tiny people in the laboratory, but one of the most important recent developments in stem cell biology is the synthetic human embryo.
All in all, the Islamic Golden Age is an exciting time to be alive and to be studious. Not just for alchemists, but for everyone in general. This flourishing of studies and translations leads us into...
Yes?
We were sent for.
You were?
Yes, to decipher some important paper.
All right! Right, of course!
Much like its arrival to the Muslim world, alchemy came to Christian Europe in the 12th century by means of translation, this time from Arabic into Latin, the literary lingua franca of the region at the time. Being a new study for Latin speakers, the translator of this first book was compelled to preface the work with a definition, saying essentially that alchemy is all about discovering the essence of different substances and combining them to make better substances. Here we are, nearly a full millennium into the written account of alchemy, and Europe is just getting the basics. Still so far from finding that philosopher's stone. As you likely know, this won't come about until much later, 1997 to be exact. I'm just kidding. The Philosopher's Stone is actually the name given to the agent that can transmute base metal into precious metal. Discovering the formula for this process would continue to be a pursuit for medieval alchemists, as well as the formula for an elixir of life, a potion capable of conferring immortality or curing all disease. Throughout the 12th and 13th centuries, European alchemists relied heavily on translations from Arabic. Translations including words such as, alchemy, elixir, alembic, and alcohol.
Intern visieren Unterschied Namen tun. Ba, ba, ba. Hey! Welcome to my historic recreation of a medieval tavern. How about some spirits, huh? Funny thing about spirits, there's a connection to alchemy. Alchemists commonly believed in the classical Greek notion that all material on Earth is composed of 4 basic elements.
Wind, water.
Some posited the existence of a more spiritual, rare 5th element, that which composed the heavenly bodies. Called quintessence, the seemingly divine extraworldly origin of this element made it a potent agent for curing imbalances of the 4 earthly elements. Curing imbalances, to put it in more modern terms, is curing ailments and extending human life.
Unbelievable!
Alchemists believed you could find this super curative quintessence of a substance through the process of distillation. Heat up a liquid in an alembic, the signature alchemical still, and any discrete chemical components can be separated because of their different boiling points. Vapor is produced and then condensed. The resulting liquid from that condensed vapor is a more pure version of the base, a quintessence. I actually have a bottle of one of the most popular base liquids used in these alchemical distillation experiments. I'll get it for you. It's wine. The distillation of wine resulted in a product they called aqua vitae, Latin for water of life. English texts sometimes simply referred to it as spirit of wine. Although Western pharmacology has since moved away from using distilled byproducts of fermented beverages in medicines, we do sometimes still enjoy the distillation of wine, otherwise known as brandy. And English speakers to this day still refer to distilled alcoholic beverages as spirits. By the end of the 13th century, we start seeing new original Latin works on alchemy, no longer dependent on translations from Arabic. By the 14th century, even people who don't read Latin are becoming aware of the practice. With greater notoriety, however, comes criticism. Legendary writers from the era, like Chaucer and Dante, speak of alchemists as thieves and liars, and the Pope issues an edict forbidding the false promise of transmutation. Some church officials even allege that alchemists are performing demonic rituals. By the 15th century, the English crown begins an effort to regulate, requiring a license for the attempt to transmute metals into gold. These alchemists must be some real shady characters, huh? It's important to note here why people were so critical of alchemy, or pseudo-alchemy, I should say. Much of science, including alchemy, is built on failure. Even modest goals often cannot be met in just one experiment. When things don't work out, you examine, you learn, you change, and you try again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. It's maddening, but that's how experimentation works. Alchemists, the real ones, were skilled experimenters. No, they clearly never figured out how to live forever, but they learned a lot along the way while trying. When you tell people that it may be possible to devise a formula to cure all disease or create immeasurable wealth from everyday objects, you also inadvertently invite charlatans and grifters to tell people that, hey, I've already figured it out. The papal edict that I mentioned before wasn't trying to end alchemy. It was trying to create a measurable means of compensating people who bought fake gold from fake alchemists. Thankfully, these days we live in a post-enlightenment world with public education, and no one is able to make money by lying about health or wealth anymore.
Sir, welcome to Cryptoland.
With so many swindlers scheming and scamming high society with false alchemy, concerns of the inflationary impact of easily manufactured or fake gold, and the ongoing debates as to whether alchemy's ties to ancient and occult philosophy prevented it from having a place in Christian society, legal restrictions became strict in some places. Unsanctioned alchemy could result in severe punishment, like in England, where we have accounts of black market alchemists publicly hanging from gilded scaffolds. In response to these risks, some practitioners simply didn't publish their findings, and the use of coded jargon continued in Europe as it had in the Middle East, making it hard for historians who find these sometimes unpublished writings to decipher what exactly alchemists were doing. The most famous example of an alchemist with a large body of unpublished writings is actually a Renaissance-era figure whose name you almost certainly know, but probably not for alchemy. Contrary to the continuing clerical criticism for occult connotations, countless considerate alchemists conformed their customs and conceptions into a clearly Christian cosmology. Take, for example, John Dee, longtime advisor to the court of Queen Elizabeth in England, educator, antiquarian, astronomer, alchemist, and seeker of the pure verities, that is, the divine forces underlying the physical world. To him, all studies, even concrete mathematics, could have a spiritual purpose. In the last decades of his life, he would devote considerable time in attempts to communicate with angels and learn a universal language that could unite humanity. Another example of an alchemist who believed in the inseparability of faith and science, and the last one I'll mention, is the maverick, father of toxicology, Paracelsus. Paracelsus was a well-traveled philosophical physician who publicly rejected medical doctrines of his time, such as treatment of wounds with animal dung, instead advocating for cleanliness to avoid infection. What a concept! He integrated herbalism and mineral knowledge into his medicines and preferred a practical, experiential approach to medical education. Medicine was not just a job, but rather a divine calling, and scientific inquiry into the natural world could reveal the nature of God. Though a believer in many things we might find odd today, like the 4 elements of nature, or that disease could originate from star-borne poisons, he pioneered a clinical method of diagnosis of ailments with specific prescriptions for specific diseases, in a time period when cure-alls were far too common. With increasing practical knowledge in minerals and medicine, enterprising alchemists presented valuable and marketable skills, even as their practice remained controversial and even though they could never find the philosopher's stone. Over time, as educated society came to disregard ancient folklore and purposefully separate religion from other fields of study, so too did the practical side of alchemy begin to distinguish itself from the mystical, going so far as to drop the prefix. Thus, chemistry grew into a mainstream science, and alchemy withered into the obscurity of pseudoscience.
When reflecting on alchemy and prior practices, I think it's important to contextualize the world people of the past lived in. It's far too easy to take for granted the centuries of change that have brought us to our current vantage point. And sometimes, yes, it's easy to laugh at some of the things people used to do, like using animal dung in medicine. Poop is funny. That's a scientific fact. But when we try to understand the religious and cultural forces that invariably seem completely foreign to us, it shows just how significant it was for those who developed methodological systems to understand and improve the world as they knew it. Their curiosity, ingenuity, and eagerness to learn from other cultures and people of the past are all virtues that we can emulate to enrich our own lives, even if we're not trying to communicate with the angels or develop a way to live forever. And maybe I've done just that. Let's get to the taste test. The sun is shining, birds are singing. It's a beautiful day, and it's time to taste the elixir of life. Now, the first step, and a very important one before tasting this, is to make sure that your railing is clear of any bird droppings, and to change your shirt if you didn't. Poop is funny. Step 2, the taste test. Smell that zest. It's coming in very strong. Which is good, because the last time I made this, it was extremely bitter. So hopefully we've smoothed things out. Okay, not bad. Not bad. The bitterness is still there, but it's much more subtle than when I did it with just the hyacinth flowers. There's a subtle sweetness from the honey, and then the lemon balm and the zest are really working to overpower the bitterness. And not too much, mind you. It's not too much citrus. It's almost like there's a competition going on between the earthiness and the citrus. It's very interesting. Will this make me live forever? Well, come back in 100 years and we'll find out. Yeah, I recommend it. Not bad.
And now for some bonus alchemy. Remember earlier when I said I didn't add the juice of citrus fruit for a reason? Well, let me show you now how hyacinth tonic reacts to acid. And I'll speed it up a bit while I fetch the spoon that I forgot to bring while shooting. Ain't that pretty? You can actually use hyacinth flowers to make a naturally pink lemonade. But, well,
I was going to end it, but just a word to the wise here. Adding the lemon juice, while it gave it this beautiful pink color, also really woke up the bitterness from the flowers. It is not something you could sell on a stand in front of your house for 10 cents a glass, as is right now. If you're going to go for the pink, you're going to need some extra sweetness, some extra flavoring, something to make it more palatable. Nope, not anymore. Oof. Yeah, the original was better. I can still kind of drink it, but I served it to my partner and it was a hard no. So if you're going pink, add some sweet.